So we're here with Joathan Layne. Can I call you Johnny?
You can call me John.
John?
Johnny, John, Jonathan, anything with a J.
Okay. Johnny, what's the name of your company?
I've got a residential real estate group called the Layne Residential Group of Compass.
Okay. And you're a realtor?
Uh, yep, I'm a realtor. Yeah, we work in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and Delaware.
That's fantastic. And how long have you been a realtor?
I've been a realtor almost about 10 years. So I think this is going on year 9.5 so far. So almost 10.
And is it strictly residential or do you do any commercial real estate?
Uh, Not really, not a ton of commercial. Like if it's a small, little office space here and there, but for the most part, we kind of just concentrate, specifically on residential rentals, and then property management is kind of our little niche, and we leave the commercial properties to those specialists. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Um, what type of clients do you work with? Buyers, sellers, both?
Yeah, so we our kind of our niche for the most part is, we're usually typically working with individuals that are on basically two sides of the coin. They've already probably purchased their home at some point in time. They've been there for 5 to 7 years, and then they're looking to kind of upgrade. Like myself, I've got two small kids, so I kind of know the drill on, when that one space that you're in all of a sudden doesn't really fit the need, and transitioning to that that forever home, or that kind of long-term home while your kids are going to be growing up and going to high school. And then the flip side that is, prior to being in real estate, I was a financial planner, so dealing with pre-retirees and retirees on coming down the mountain, where they've already raised their family, and
Mm.
now they're transitioning to a whole nother life of needing somebody to kind of take them down the mountain, and downsizing to a property that might be a little bit more fit for their needs, as they kind of grow older, or maybe they're transitioning out of state. So those sides of the coin is where we kind of specialize in.
So you mentioned coming to the other side of the mountain or transitioning into a new life, which is a good segue into why we're talking today, which is you do a fair amount of work with clients who are selling their home either during a divorce or just after a divorce, either because they've decided to sell it or because a judge has ordered them to sell it.
Correct. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. That becomes, it has to typically has to be done, and it can be a pretty stressful time, for all parties involved. So you want to be, not necessarily just a realtor, but you want to be an advocate for all parties involved to, make sure that they're educated, and, they can, they know the ins and outs of kind of what to expect from, tee to green.
Now you're actually trusted by some court appointed trustees to list homes that the court has taken under its jurisdiction. Isn't that right?
Yeah, yeah, we've done, quite a few, specifically a lot in, Montgomery County. But yeah, we worked with court appointed trustees, and kind of working alongside, them, and, the seller to, make sure that, all parties are pretty happy at the end.
And how does can you talk a little bit about what those trustee cases are like? What kind of clients those are for you, and what that process of listing those homes is like?
Sure. I mean, they kind of vary depending upon what the situation is from the trustee. If it's a divorce situation, it's usually coming, to me, and they're asking me to say, hey, listen, we've got to, sell a property, and I might be maybe they're the trustees themselves, or the ones that are able to kind of sign for, um, everything kind of moving forward once we put the property on the market and have a viable buyer, and then, go to contract and then close. And at the same time, sometimes there are, there's a husband and wife or two parties that are involved that, I'm mediating between, and, helping spearhead that process of selling that home for them, and then keeping the trustee involved, throughout the process. So then that way, everything kind of moves along, quickly. So, there's never really like end all be all. I'm sure like divorce cases are all different, sales are all different, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's usually the same kind of progress, I'll get the case, and then I'll meet with the sellers and let them know exactly what they need to do. As far as getting the property ready to be sold, we'll talk about timeline, we'll inform the trustee, and then kind of go from there.
Now, I know, flipping back to divorce cases, generally not so much trustee cases necessarily, but a big concern that divorce clients have that I hear is they're concerned about selling the home. And do you notice, and that their case will, their situation's different because they're going through a divorce. From your perspective as the real estate agent, do you see any difference between divorce clients who are selling their homes and non-divorce clients, I guess would be how I would term it?
Yeah, and I think that the biggest difference is just having the public knowledge maybe in the neighborhood that they're in. And one of the largest things that I get concerns with, and I usually ask is, listen, we want to market your home. How do we want to market it? Do we want to market it off listing where we're not putting it on the MLS? Do we want to have a sign in the yard, right? Because then all of a sudden that stake goes in the yard and everyone's like, well, Mr. and Mrs. Brown, they're selling their house. I wonder where they're going. And that kind of opens up the can of worms that they might not necessarily feel comfortable with. Maybe they have kids or, it's just their private business. So that's usually the biggest difference. Usually in a traditional sale, it's, hey, we're selling, we're moving out of state, we're building a house, we're whatever it is. But with the divorce, especially, you kind of mums the word on it for the most part. So, we'll kind of figure out how we want to market the property, accordingly. So then that way both parties feel comfortable and they don't really have to answer some of those uncomfortable questions from people in the neighborhood that, might want to just pry their nose into what's going on. So that's kind of like the biggest difference.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, you're not, I hope I can ask you this without you giving away too many trade secrets, because you're fantastic at marketing homes for sale.
Sure.
What are some strategies that you implement when dealing with either divorce clients or non-divorce clients to try to maximize the value of the home and using marketing strategies to do that?
Yeah, well, I think that from a marketing standpoint, as a whole, the whole idea is that whether or not we're marketing a home on the MLS or marketing it off market, we want to encapsulate what it's like to be in your home. And we're going to do a lot of that through obviously high definition photography, but also high definition videography. We want to give buyers that are going to walk into your space the ability to feel like what it's going to be like to live there. So I talk a lot about like the five senses: see, touch, feel, taste, so on and so forth.
Right.
People are going to have a feeling when they see your home. And just like the same way you walk into someone's home and you're like, wow, I love your home. It feels so like warm and cozy in here. Or, wow, this feels a little bit sterile. So we want to portray that through, photography and video as much as we can. We also want to kind of highlight some of the things in and around the home because, where you sleep 8 hours a night isn't necessarily going to make you who you are. It's going to be the things in and around you. So, how close are the schools if they've got kids? How quickly can they get to the local grocery store, gym, church, trails, and all the things that people like to do outside of just being in the home. So we're going to highlight all these attributes to every single buyer that comes in, specifically for individuals that are going through a divorce. And like I touched on earlier, they might not necessarily want to have all the fanfare that goes along with coming on the market and having a sign and, having an open house and strangers coming in and, just feels uncomfortable. They're going through something emotional as it is, and that's a huge change in their life. And if they're kids, they're, for their kids' life,
Sure is.
it's selling a house it's a tangible object, but it's also very emotional. So in that case, what we'll do is, we'll market that listing, with as a private listing where we're taking only exclusive agents and their buyers within our brokerage that can come see your property. And what's really nice about that is We don't have to worry about having a sign on the door. We don't have to worry about a zillion people coming in and out of the house. And we might be able to get the home sold quickly, especially in this market with pretty much no problem. We might not have as many offers, but you know what? Maybe the ability just not to ever have everybody in your business might kind of outweigh that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now you mentioned the emotional portion of selling a home pursuant to a divorce. And you're absolutely right. They can be very emotional, very anxiety ridden. Can you offer any advice to people out there right now who are searching for a realtor and faced with the prospect of selling their home? They're either going through a divorce or they're about to finalize their divorce and they know they need to sell the house. What would be the best advice that you could give them as they start that process?
I think the best advice is, certainly, if like anything, you want to do your due diligence. Not every realtor is going to be created equal, and they're not going to maybe have experience in the same capacity that you need, right? If it was a standard sale, and you really gotta just want to, ask the right questions of, and you want the other agent to ask, like, what are your expectations of me when we're working together? And that's going to kind of lend its hand on trying to kind of figure out what you're going to need to kind of do moving forward, right? I talk about something, it's so simple as if I'm touring a home with a buyer, I'll pull out my compass and I'll say, well, we got morning sun in the back and we have afternoon sun in the front. You can actually use your backyard and not have to sweat during the summertime. And so often people will say, I would have never thought of that. And so you want somebody that can help you think of the things that you're not necessarily thinking of because you're going through all these different things. And the decluttering and the staging and the photography and all those things will kind of fall into place. But, my advice is just really just align yourself with somebody that kind of sees things through your lens and at the same time can show you things from their lens. So then that way they kind of like move parallel, if that makes sense.
It sure does. Now, if we have people who are watching this video, they're about to go through selling their home, subject to a divorce, and they have questions for you, or they'd like to reach out to you for the possibility of selling their home, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can find me pretty much on the internet everywhere at Layne Residential Group. It's Layne Residential Group on Instagram, Facebook, website. And you can send me a DM or my phone number and all that stuff there. And my email is there, and you can find me there if you got questions.
Well, this has been great, Johnny. I appreciate your time, sharing that information with me, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Sounds great, man. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.